Welcome back to Salam Media News and Views with your guest host Tahir Maepa. We are now going to go into the next segment of this discussion for the morning. Uh, we we all saw the sad situation that is developing in Gaza, where some people in Gaza rose against Hamas, which is again a demonstration that the Israeli Zionist machinery is working hard in trying to isolate a legitimate freedom fighting organization against its very same people by brutally killing the Palestinians in Gaza. However, in the eyes of the world, obviously, this is going to be seen as a vote of no confidence against Hamas, that a majority of people in Gaza, they just want peace, which they will never get, whether there is Hamas or not, in my view. However, for us to be able to navigate ourselves around what is currently happening, we have our guest, Naazim Adam, who's going to have a discussion with us and give us his views and opinions about what is developing in Gaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nazim, welcome to Salam Media.
Walaikum salam, Tahir. Always good to be with Salam Media.
Great stuff. Tell me, what is your assessment of what is happening in Gaza currently? In particular, what we saw coming out of Gaza, where we saw tens of people marching, raising white flags, apparently marching against Hamas, asking for peace. What is your assessment?
Look, we must understand Gaza is in a very terrible situation, the worst the world has ever seen. It's in a genocide. Um, so for people to rise up and ask for peace and to demonstrate for food and so forth is only natural. The reports that we have seen is that there was a small group who started raising a voice against Hamas in one of the protests, and this too is also natural. Hamas didn't win 100% of the vote when they were elected in 2006, and there are obviously people who are not supportive of Hamas. What is, however, strange is that for 18 months of genocidal mass murder, we haven't heard anything of the people of Gaza taking a stand against Hamas. So that is something that obviously we need to be cognizant of. It's the first time. We also know that this comes after a temporary ceasefire where we know that Israeli and other operatives and agents were planted in Gaza, and there was some psychological warfare and preparation on the ground. We understand clearly that the enemy of the people of Palestine is the Israelis and all of those that support them, not necessarily Hamas or its own people. They may have differences, the PA, Fatah, Hamas, and so forth. But the real enemy of the people of Gaza remains those who occupy their land, those who bomb them from the skies, those who destroy their homes. And that is the Israeli military and supported by their Western allies. So when I say it's natural, we also know that the people in Israel have raised their voices day in and day out against their own government for the failure to deliver on the captives and to end this war. What we also know is that our reporting is very limited because Israel has blocked all other mainstream media from entering the Gaza Strip. So we are dependent on the news that we are getting from the Gazan people. So yeah, I think it's a psychological warfare that's going on. I think there are agent provocateurs that are present in there. I think it's natural for people to raise their voices if they are suffering immensely as they are. And I also think that we need to have a context and a clear understanding. For me, the important thing, Tyre, is that uh, Hamas had no option but to take this fight to the Israelis. You must understand that by October 7th, there were tens of thousands of Palestinians arbitrarily arrested, many without trial, without a charge sheet, even languishing in Israeli jails under the worst conditions. And we're seeing the reports coming out now that some of them have been released of torture, of starvation, of rape, of sexual assault, of psychological abuse and physical abuse. So there were tens of thousands of Palestinians languishing in those prisons. We also know that at the time of October 7th, the blockade on Gaza was so severe that the Israeli and I don't know the uh, how sickening they are, but they were even controlling the amount of calories that were allowed to enter Gaza just to keep Gazans in a constant state of poverty and hunger. So at that point, I think Gaza was already in a slow genocide. The third context that we know is that the uh, Arab states were planning to normalize all relations, which would have been a bit of a death blow to the struggle of the Palestinian people, normalizing with Israel, accepting it as a legitimate state, although it's an occupying state, with apartheid laws and values. And the final one was that there was clear evidence. Remember that just before October 7th, the ultra right Zionists were cutting red heifers, planning for the takeover of Masjid al Aqsa. So, from an Islamic perspective, there was a call to defend Masjid al Aqsa. And in fact, the Hamas called their operation Al Aqsa Flood to defend Masjid al Aqsa from a complete takeover by the Zionists. So, there wasn't an option for Hamas to do what they need to do. And for a long time, for this 18 months, people could understand and people identified with that. We knew at the time that Israelis and their supporters, they were psychopathic racists, right? I mean, we saw it in the previous Gaza wars. We saw what was happening in the prisons in the West Bank, the attacks by settlers and so forth. They're psychopathic, racist, entitled society. But no one would have expected that it would go so far to become these vengeful, barbaric, genocidal maniacs who continuously bombed Gaza with more devastation than maybe 10 nuclear weapons. And that's the reality. They've flattened Gaza. They want to totally ethnically cleanse Gaza and the rest of Palestine because there's an ethnic cleansing happening in the West Bank as well of Palestinians. There's nothing more racist than that and establish this colonial state for Jews only. And when I say only, that's what they want. They don't want anyone else. And it's a new project. This Zionist project is less than 100 years old. So we need to have all of that context to understand that Hamas had the support, and it has, I think, the majority support of the Palestinian people and human rights activists generally who believe in the right to resist by any means necessary. The
But
final
then,
point I want to
okay,
make, Tahir, if I may.
please proceed.
The final point is more from an Islamic point of view. And it's we all throughout of this have been speaking of the martyrs. We speak of the shaheed, the tens of thousands of people who are killed. We say we take strength from the ayat of the Quran, which says they have not passed, they are alive, though we cannot perceive it. I don't know the exact translation, but that martyrs live on. And when you understand this in context, when people are facing an enemy and an army that is mightier than they are,
Mm.
and what is the strength of their conviction to the call to defend Masjid al-Aqsa and their people? It's a rightful call, and it's only the hypocrites that would not take a stand against the enemies of
Yeah.
the oppressed, to take a stand against the apartheid state of Israel, to take a stand against the slow genocide that they were experiencing, to take
Mm.
a stand when the call came to defend Islam and Masjid al-Aqsa. The hypocrites would not do that, and they'd be the first to criticize. And they
Mm.
would say to us, if Hamas didn't do this, people wouldn't have
Mm.
been killed. And that is such a cop out, because you and I know, as believers, that none of us can avert death. If it's
Yes.
prescribed, it's prescribed for us. What we can do is avert our failure to stand for justice and for
Mm.
truth. And yes, no one wants people to die. No one wants to see the loss of life the way it is. And no one predicted that the genocide would evolve to this stage. And the people that are committing that genocide, they are the true enemies of the world, of humanity. And we
Mm.
mustn't lose focus of who the true enemy is. And the hypocrites that support them and undermine the resistance, they must be exposed as well. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely, Nazim, and you are quite correct. Unfortunately, when you are going through hardship, what you are saying now seems to evade you, but the reality is that death cannot be avoided. However, what is key is that standing for justice is got perpetual benefit, not maybe for you in this life, but also in the next, and for those who come behind you. Now, tell me, from what you could gather, what is the views of the activists on the grounds in the light of what we are seeing, people rising against Hamas? And you are quite correct. Obviously, these may be the people who never supported Hamas in any case from day one. However, what is the views of different Palestinian organizations on the ground? And do you think that this is an effort to also start to create a civil disobedience or a civil war among the Palestinians for those who are pro Hamas and those who are against Hamas?
I think there's already and we need to look at the two different areas, West Bank and Gaza. Gaza, there isn't much of a government to be protesting against. I mean, it's pretty annihilated through this genocide. So if you are going to be protesting against people that are in the hospitals and so forth, these are civil society people, organizations that are running things. It's not as if Hamas has been able to run affairs in Gaza since this genocide began. Um, yes, I think that there is a lot, and there has been for a long time, a lot of disagreement and division amongst the Palestinian forces, the liberation forces, the between Fatah and the PLO and Hamas. And what we do see in Gaza is Islamic Jihad and Hamas and some of the other resistance groups all working collectively in the resistance, in the I could say the military resistance or the armed struggle. But in the West Bank, there is an absolute civil war. The Palestinian people are fed up with the Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority, who have not been able to secure any kind of human rights and dignity for their own people, and have been totally co-opted and are collaborating with the apartheid state of Israel. So if there is any kind of uh, discontent that's on the ground, it's against the Palestinian Authority, who have been rearresting some of the people that were released in the first phase of the ceasefire, which collapsed. So obviously there are these divisions. There is a vying for power. We know that the Arab states and the Israelis are comfortable with the PA taking over Gaza to an extent. They also divided. Some of them want a full military takeover, the IDF to oversee Gaza. So it's the day after project is uh, uh, scenes behind the scenes. There's talk of the Palestinian Authority considering taking over Gaza. Which I think will meet even more hostile resistance than the few chants or anti-Hamas chants that we saw this week in one or two sporadic marches and so forth. If there is no way that the Gazan people are going to accept the Palestinian Authority, not after 18 months of collaboration with the genociders, after 18 months of total impotence in being able to end the horrors that we are seeing.
Oh, Jazakallah khair, Habibi. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing with us your views and opinions about what is happening in Gaza. A very sad state of affairs there. Thank you very much. We are now going to go for an ad and we're going to continue with our program with our next guests.